You're initially, as an independent person moving into a community, you're picking something based on design. And I try to go out there and tell people, you really need to look at the end game, because what are those services? You need to look at all of those different things that could be a problem. So you just have to look at things a little bit differently than just, oh, is it a beautiful community?
What if your community's interior design wasn't just about aesthetics, but was the key to increasing occupancy, reducing turnover, and creating a real sense of home for older adults? Today's guest has spent over 30 years proving just how powerful thoughtful design can be.
Welcome to From Leads to Leases, a CCR growth podcast that helps senior living providers transform their complex challenges into opportunities. Listen in for stories from industry leaders, innovative strategies, and insights. And with our expertise, learn how to increase occupancy faster, guaranteed.
Welcome back to another episode of From Leads to Leases, the podcast that dives deep into the senior living and senior care industries, bringing you insights, strategies, and stories from the experts at the forefront of innovation, leadership, and care. I'm your host, Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth. And for those of you who don't know about us, CCR Growth is a full-service marketing and growth agency that is exclusive to the senior living industry. And through this podcast, I'm here to guide you through the evolving landscape of senior care, exploring the innovations, strategies, and leadership insights that are shaping the future of the industry. So whether you're a provider, a caregiver, or an industry leader, this show is here to help you make informed decisions and create meaningful impact. So today I'm joined by Marcy Sagel, founder and principal of MSA Interiors. With over 3 decades of experience in commercial interior design, Marcy has led projects across multifamily, student housing, and senior living. Her firm is known for transforming spaces in a way that not only looks beautiful, but actually enhances tenant satisfaction, supports aging in place, and drives real business results, like accelerated lease-ups and increased NOI. Marcy's approach blends smart design with empathy and strategy, and I think you'll walk away from this conversation rethinking what design can actually do. So, Marcy, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here.
Jerry, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on your show. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure. Talking with creative individuals, I always like to start with the origin story. I think that's always interesting. What first drew you to interior design, and what's kept you inspired through the decades?
So when I was young and a little girl, my mother had an incredible sense of fashion and style, and would have different interior designers working on our house, some good, some not so good. And so she would always, I'm an only daughter, I have 2 brothers, and so she would always ask my opinion, and I would add my kind of opinion, and I'd look at things that were presented and started to formulate bigger opinions as I got a little bit older and was a little bit more versed into how design worked. And so I helped design a lot of our house as things move forward, and I felt like this was definitely a passion for me from a very, very young age. And I liked it so much that, I decided to start my career in that. And so I studied graphic design and interior design, and just how those two kind of connected for me were a very large part of how I got into this business.
And I know you recently launched a second venture, Designer Bank. Can you share the vision behind it and how
Sure.
it fits into your mission as a mentor?
Sure. So, when you own a company and you are the principal and you are growing your business, you learn a lot about yourself as an employer. You learn a lot about yourself as a design leader. And over the years, not only are you growing in those 2 categories, but you're trying to grow your employees. And so there's a lot of training involved and a lot of, what I call good, bad, and indifferent things that I've done over the years. And so you grow these processes and you figure out how to work most efficiently and how to make people feel comfortable in their job. And you train them in different categories of being a designer. With that, we work on very large jobs. And what I found was a lot of designers have only one aspect of design and may not have all of the aspects that we're looking for. And so we had to train people no matter how much experience they had. And what we found was that we were basically training people over and over and over again with the same kind of expertise that we wanted in each of our designers. And so I thought there was something missing. What I found was that we have some what I call good nuggets to offer other designers out there. And we decided that we were going to start doing these training modules that any designer, architect, or person wanting to learn in this industry could learn from. And so we were doing 30-minute modules in what we would call beginner, intermediate, and advanced courses that would be very, very inexpensive, that commercial designers or anyone that was a designer that wanted to learn how to be a commercial designer could get from a lot of our training. And so I've been working on scripting currently, and the scripting is the most important part of these modules. And then everyone in my office is going to participate in these learning modules, and we're going to launch them, and they'll be available to anyone that wants them. And I would say probably in the next 3 to 6 months, we'll be launching some of them, but we hope to be launching 37 of them, and
Wow.
people can pick and choose what categories. For example, we want to teach people how to render. We do all of our own rendering in-house. It's fast, it's quick, it's very, very high level. And so we want other people to learn how to do that. And so rendering would have sort of a beginner, an intermediate, and advanced course in rendering. And by the end, you should know quite a bit about rendering and can kind of take it from there. And then eventually, when we're doing these online, we hope to eventually have some in-person trainings around the country that we can also launch and have people sign up and come in person. So that's kind of where we're going with Designer Bank.
I love it. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Thanks.
Why do you think there's such a knowledge gap for people? Is
Yeah.
the education system failing when it comes to training, or is it this on-the-job training that somebody just has to acquire this way?
Commercial designers work in whatever the architectural firms work in. And right now, the larger the jobs, the more the architectural firms are working. They work in what is Revit. It's an Autodesk. It was CAD and now it's Revit. So everyone's working in Revit. Revit's expensive and it takes a lot of training. And even if you've trained forever in Revit, you're never going to know completely all there is to know about Revit because it's just got so many levels to it. And for designers, there's a lot of workarounds. That's what I like to call it. Where architects, it's been really designed for architects, but for designers, it's really got a lot of workarounds. So we're going to be talking about a lot of that in the training. We're going to be giving the gaps that there are for interior designers. When you go to school, you don't necessarily learn how to be a commercial designer. You learn what I call basics. There's only a handful of designer schools out there that are training people in Revit and training them well so that they can come out and work in it efficiently. And so we're going to just fill the gaps that there are out of school. And not only that, if you're an architect and you're doing interior design, there are a lot of different scenarios that you're going to learn through the training modules. So it's really for advanced architects. It's for beginner interior designers that want to learn how to be a commercial designer, and filling those needs sort of with some training.
I know exactly what you mean. I mean, one of my undergraduate degrees was in graphic design.
Yeah.
It was very different what you learn in the program in school versus what you learn in the field. And whatever your agency is working on at the time is what you become proficient in. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think, I've guest spoken at a lot of universities that teach sort of like a master's in real estate. And, you're working with a lot of developers in those courses that have never, ever dealt with design. And basically, my course is always to teach them how to select things that are not what they necessarily like, but are what's right for the architecture, what's right for, that audience that's going to be leasing from you, let's say in multifamily. So I kind of give them what I would do for any client. We give them inspirations and we break them up into groups in the class, and we have them as a group understand what their competitors have visually. And so they can see what they have visually for the amenity and for the units. And then we have them pick what might be best for them for that market to rent. And it's really kind of fascinating. And by the end, I think that they have a good understanding of how to select inspirations and direction of where the building's going to go.
A lot of people too, they start in residential design and then they eventually, some people pivot, like you pivoted into the commercial space. What pulled you towards the commercial space, and specifically what pulled you towards senior living?
So that's a really good question. And the answer to that is that I love residential design because it's so creative, but commercial design is it's a knowledge base, and you have to have skills that you have to learn along the way, especially for senior living. There are things that you need to know about materials and adaptability and different needs that seniors have, and it's different than any other type of commercial design. So when I did residential, I love it, but dealing with individual clients is a challenge in itself. And as much as I find it creative, I really prefer dealing on the corporate side or the development side because I feel like the ability to design a whole building is a lot more effective and a lot more challenging and a lot more interesting from an outcome for me anyway. So that was definitely why I went into commercial design.
Last time we spoke too, you were telling me a story about how you saved a client hundreds of thousands of dollars by redlining cabinetry specs.
Yeah.
How did that change the course of your career?
Yeah, well, I had a mentor who was an architect who brought me into a very, very large project, got me started in the multifamily arena, and he kind of guided me along the process. Now, the reason he came to me was because I knew cabinetry. And so I had a lot of experience in cabinetry, was helping a lot of, I was working with a lot of cabinetry lines to help them design what they were producing for, their audience. And I took a look at his drawings and I said, well, wow, why would anybody put this door's too tall? It's going to warp. It's over what we would call the natural height of a door for cabinetry. And if it's made of wood, it's going to 100% warp. And we don't need this many cabinetry for rental, and there's way too many drawers. Drawers fail. It's the first thing that fails in cabinetry, especially when you're getting a lot of wear and tear, like in, rental units and that kind of thing. And it just didn't make any sense. So he's like, well, why don't you just redline it for me and tell me what you would cut out? And I said, well, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to cut out from a price perspective. And then I'm going to make a list of wear and tear, what we should try to take out and have less of. We don't need, it's not like a residential home where you need to have, 20 or 30 drawers in a kitchen. We need to have utensil drawers. We need to have daily cutlery drawers. We need to have, different types of drawers depending on, how high level it is. So let's cut some of those out because they're going to fail, and that's what we're going to end up having to fix. So he listened. It saved him hundreds of thousands of dollars in cabinetry right across the board. And he's like, I want to do this again because I had no idea we could save that amount of money. And then we could use that money to basically, we ended up putting a Chihuly fixture in the lobby that we saved from the cabinetry. So there's so many different ways you can save in the units themselves and still give in a really high level unit without wasting money on things that you don't necessarily need. So
I love that. I love that. And
yeah.
I'm curious too, what are some of the key ways senior living design needs to evolve beyond the institutional look that a lot of places still carry today?
So people want to walk in and feel like they're in a high level residence. You want to walk in and you want to see high level furniture, high level finishes. You want to see a bar area. You want to see a cook kitchen that everybody might be able to share, a quiet reading area, a fireplace area, lots of different nooks that you can go to, a gaming area, a area for people to play games, an area for people to, have like a movie night, or an area for people to gather for a Sunday service. There's so many different things that you need, but we make it feel more residential. We don't make it feel like it's an old school health, space. We really give it that residential hotel feel that makes people feel like they walk in and they go, wow, this is where I want to be. This feels like me. This is high level. And it has all of these different amenities that I've never seen even before. And, garden areas, walking paths, all of those wonderful things that we now do in senior living that make it a lot more residential feel.
What do you think senior living residents value most in their environments?
So obviously the units are really, really important. When you're bringing someone in for their walkthrough tour, their unit is going to be most important. But you also need to have the wow factor, and you want people to feel like they're walking through a space that feels like they'd feel very comfortable bringing any family members or friends to come and visit. And the unit got to have that, space that looks really fantastic, but you also need it to feel special. And so we make the finishes feel very special. And we also have a lot of key factors that we like to do in the units, like, adding lighting, just basic lighting. Old school, they didn't have any kind of lighting on the ceiling or fans or any of that kind of thing. You'd walk in and you'd have to put lamps that you actually have to turn on before you walk in the room. Well, that's not really great for seniors. That's not easy. I have a hard time seeing sometimes. So I want to walk into a room and the light comes on, or I hit a switch and all of them come on. Those things really make a big difference. I want to feel like if I want to leave my door open, I can leave my door open and not have to feel so shut in and by myself. And so there's all these different things that you can add to the units that make them feel a lot more special. Adding TV areas in not only the bedroom, but also in the living room areas as well, wherever you may want to put it. Let's say you want to sit at your kitchen table and you want to be able to watch the news in the morning while you're having your coffee, that you don't have to go back into the living room to do that. So just really being more thoughtful and more directive with what you're going to do for each of the individual units is super important.
I would think too, from an operational standpoint, you're saving on energy costs and you're also saving on safety issues too. If somebody has mobility challenges and they're having to get up and down just to turn on a light or do something in their unit, I think that's another added value.
Yeah, and we used to always put carpet in bedrooms, and carpet's kind of sometimes it can be a trip and fall for a senior. And so, the flooring is just, new lines of flooring that we're putting in now in senior living. And it's just so many new ways of technology that we're adding to each of these vending machines so that, people don't have to necessarily run to, let's say a CVS to go get just basic things like maybe a Tylenol or a Band-Aids, or just simple things that they may just want to have, available to them. And again, I'm not saying it's Tylenol or Band-Aids, but using that as an example for, just basic things that you would get at a pharmacy that you don't have to run out for. So just adding those kinds of, things. We have, sometimes we do like a loaner, like we can loan a vacuum cleaner or a, cleaning equipment or those kinds of things. If you want to do your space yourself and you want to clean your unit and have it fresh and you don't want to have somebody come in and do it for you, there's things that, we have all these new sort of technology things that we can do, a loaner, library or whatever you want to do for books or online. All of those things add all kinds of interest to any of the senior living things that we do.
One of the things that you talked about was design driving ROI. How is that measured? Is that typically just, we redesigned the space, and since redesigning the space, we've seen more lease ups, or our conversion rate is higher, or our retention rate is better than it was before? How are you measuring that? Yes. Or how are they measuring that?
So if it's a new build, it's obviously you're measuring from lease ups from 0 to wherever it goes, and we look at it in the time frame. So they, in their development plans and financials, they have a period of time that they want to be at a certain percent leased up, and we typically are way ahead of their lease up schedule. And I follow that because I find it very exciting to make sure that we're hitting the mark on the design. And of course, the price point and everything else all plays into it. But we do follow it, and we like to kind of track where we are. But, you're also looking at, for any of the renovations, a lot of them are dated, and, different ownerships feel different needs in different communities to either update the higher end communities because they're making more dollars per unit, or even keeping some of their lower end properties updated because, they need to keep it looking fresh, and you've got so much competition out there. So all of these different things are all trackable. They're trackable by percentages of dollars and percentages of time and percentages of how full the, that particular senior living community fills up.
In your experience too, have there been certain features or adaptable spaces that have translated into better ROI? Typically, on average,
Yeah.
every time we install one of these fountains, we
Yeah.
get more move-ins.
I would say there's not one thing in particular. It's sort of a lot of things, and the units and the amenities are really both equally important. Some people are really just looking at the units, while other people want the whole community and the activities and everything else that are going to play into it to be a part of their decision making. And, you know, some of the companies that run these programs do a better job at the daily activities and keep it incredibly full with an activity director that is really engaged and looking for new and important things. So that's also a big factor. People are moving to a community to socialize usually, and they're looking initially to be independent and socialize. And then from there, things may decline and they may need more help and services. So they may go to an assisted living portion of it. And then, of course, sometimes to a memory care. So initially, when people come in, they are looking for socialization. What are you going to give me that keeps me with other people? Dining, activities, social engagement that they can't get in independent living at home.
I know with commercial properties, obviously planning is such a huge aspect of this. What research or community input do you gather beforehand?
We do a lot of research on our own. They give us initially a packet of marketing research, but what we're looking for is who are their biggest competitors all in the area? What are they providing? What do their amenities look like? What do their units look like? We photograph them. We go and photograph them, and then we put them on a board so we can see what they look like and what they're missing. And we'll make a list of what they're missing, try to hit that area and engage with putting those amenities in that the other communities don't have, and the units adding more features that, might be more unique and interesting. And that's really how we grow and design from the beginning.
Are there specific data points that influence your design decisions?
So it's always we come up with our list when we're starting to design, but it's a group decision. So whoever the group is that owns it, the development group, they also have a team of people that we have to work with, and we all make the decisions together. So they're made as a team, so that everybody's on board. They feel like they've made those decisions as a group, and everybody's on board to move forward with what those design decisions are.
How complex is that process? Like, is that like too many cooks in the kitchen scenario sometimes, or is it
Sometimes.
usually pretty smooth?
Yeah, we have groups that it's super smooth and it's super
Yeah.
buttoned up. And then we have other groups that there's just so many people sitting at the table for those meetings that we're like, okay, we're going to leave you guys with this inspiration package and this list of what we think we want to do for the amenities and space plans. And then we're going to let you come back to us and give us a decision in terms of what directions. And if it's still unclear, then we'll have another meeting and we'll all focus in on different areas, units and amenities typically separate, so that we don't get too many decisions made in one day. We definitely find that if there's too many cooks, too many decisions is too difficult of a task. So we'll break it up into different areas to make it a little bit more easier to kind of make those decisions as a group.
That's definitely a smart way to go. But I just feel like getting a consensus on something like that, because everybody has a different vision and idea of how they can perceive the space. Even though you're the expert, there's still, I mean, it's the same with us. We can design an ad campaign or a website, but sometimes the operator sees a different vision and then everything has to change based on that.
Yeah, my favorite is when you get a branding company involved and they're picking branding before we've done the design.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, wait a second. Why are we going to follow a branding before we've come up with a direction that's best for the community? So I always like to figure out the direction for the community and work in tandem with the branding group so that we make sure we're all on the same page, branding and marketing to the same audience, rather than branding dictating or design dictating. It really is a combination. It's very important for us to figure all that out together, but not be directive from one over the other.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. I want to talk about the developer aspect of this? Because I know right now there's so many new development projects underway as the population of older adults continues to increase for the next decade and a half, roughly. What are the most common missteps developers make when planning for senior living interiors?
That's a great question. I think there's a lot of things that are missed, to be honest with you. And there's some developers that do it incredibly well, and other developers that are trying to get into the arena and they're just thinking about what they do for a market rate apartment and not necessarily for a senior apartment. So I guess to answer that, I would say the biggest thing that I would probably see is that the units need to be bigger and easier to get around and flow. I think what I see a lot of times that architects do on a new build is that they will put the closet between the bedroom and the bathroom. Okay, that's probably my biggest misstep that I see for seniors, because seniors may need to use the washroom more frequently during the evening, and to have to go all the way from your bedroom through a walk-in closet to a bathroom is not really efficient for a senior. So I always explain that to architects. I'm like, we really need to have the bathroom there and then put the closet on the other side, because it needs to be a quick, short step from the bedroom to the bathroom. That's probably the biggest misstep that I see.
And you also mentioned how important it is to understand that this move to senior living is potentially somebody's last home. I mean, that has to weigh on the design choices and even just from the design lens overall when you're planning a project. I mean, how do you factor that in?
So, having experienced this a number of times on a personal level with my mother, who needed memory care, and my aunt, who needed memory care, and I cared for both of them, it's a challenge, because when you're looking at a community, if you're an independent senior living, it's one area that is, wonderful if you want to be socialized and have, dining and activities with lots of other people. But ultimately, you really need to be looking at the other portion of senior living, which is the assisted and the memory care, and what you might need at the end stage, and how well that community is going to give you those services, and what their regulations are, because the regulations are really key. Some of these places basically take over your life, even with the family making decisions. They have rules and regulations, and you have to follow those rules and regulations, and it becomes very complex, especially in the memory care area. So you have to be prepared for some of those things at the end game. And it's not to say that everyone needs that, but when you're looking for a community, you need to look at that. And it's really, really important, because things change from an independent all the way to the memory care. And there's some odd things in between that you need to be looking at. Some of those are, what are the rules and regulations with medication, with facilities on the premise? What do they offer? What kind of facilities do they have, and how do they work with you on that? It's very, very important. So those are things to look at when you're looking at putting someone into a community or putting yourself into a community. It's all great if you're able to drive and get yourself places and, have a more independent living. I have an uncle who's 96 years old, and he's very independent, plays bridge every day, and, is very capable of doing everything. So he hasn't needed any of those services. But if you do need some of those services, it's really, really important to look at those as a family or an individual when you're picking a community.
It's interesting. You could probably say that the higher the level of care, the lower the focus is on design,
Yeah, and
which is
that's
kind of unfortunate.
you're initially, as an independent person moving into a community, you're picking something based on design.
Yeah.
And I try to go out there and tell people, you really need to look at the end game, because what are those services? What's the ratio of people to staff, which is really, really, really important. And you tend to find the higher end you pay for a community, the smaller the ratio is. But every single group has different, issues, and you need to look at all of those different things that could be a problem. And so you just have to look at things a little bit differently than just, oh, is it a beautiful community? From a user standpoint, you need to be picking something that has a smaller ratio of staff to individual people at the end game. And if not, you'll be hiring your own care. along with paying the overhead of that
Yeah.
facility. And I have experienced that personally, so, and designed them. So I understand what that looks like. I didn't know to ask those questions at the beginning. I had no idea that I needed to know what that was. I also didn't understand that they have their own medical director, and that medical director is making decisions that you may not agree with. So you have to make sure you ask those questions up front.
It's amazing I don't want to say the lack of education, but the lack of awareness I think that most people have around senior living and the different levels of care until they actually have to face it for the first time.
Yeah.
That's one of the goals that we have as a marketing agency, is the communities we manage, not only to educate their audience on the amenities and the features and the benefits of living there, but also about those different levels of care and when they kick in, and to start creating that narrative with people early on in their decision-making process, so they're not left in the last moments of a crisis trying to figure out what level of care do I need, what is this going to cost, how am I going to pay for this, all those types of things we're trying to help them figure out ahead of time. So it's definitely challenging.
I because I experienced this so early on with my mother at a young age. My mom had Lewy bodies, and she was sick in her 60s. What was interesting is, well, they didn't know that it was Lewy bodies at the time until the end of, sort of more towards the end, because of where we're located in Baltimore. But, you know, what I didn't understand were some of the needs that are so different from a person walking around to a person being bedridden. And so, what those services are just so key. So I also didn't understand long-term care until fortunately, my mother had long-term care, and she had a really good long-term care plan. And so I was able to get some experience with that. And at the time, it made me look at, do I need long-term care? Should I have long-term care? And the answer, of course, was yes. Everybody should have long-term care, unless you want to deplete every single ounce of money that you've earned over a lifetime, because it's expensive to care as you get to a certain age and you have certain medical conditions and so, I talk about that a lot to a lot of different friends and family members, and I'm on the board of Alzheimer's for the state of Maryland. So I learn about a lot of different things that, I'm privy to from looking at different research and that kind of thing. And Maryland happens to be one of the top in the country for Alzheimer's. So we're a small state, but we have a very large population with Alzheimer's. And a lot of it from the research looks like diet and exercise and those kinds of things. But, it's so important to understand what your needs are if you need that kind of care, and what that level of care costs. And I talk about that to different people, and I tell people, while you're young, get some long-term care. It's inexpensive when you're younger, and look at that and see what you might need. 1 in 3 people become, I think, disabled in a lifetime. And so it's important to look at that and make sure that you have some kind of coverage so that you're being cared for in a kind and compassionate way.
Yeah, and 1 in 3 adults over the age of 80 have Alzheimer's.
That's
too.
correct.
And that's a staggering statistic.
It is staggering.
Yeah.
But they are making strides. I have seen
Yeah.
some research with some new drugs that are coming out on the market that are really being quite effective. So that's positive, and I'm excited to see where that goes. There's been some really great new drugs that are coming out that I think are really going to be super helpful for slowing the process down. Any day we hope to have any kind of research that changes that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrible and scary disease for sure. Talking about the end game too, what design elements can directly support that phase so people are living with dignity, safety, and comfort in those situations? So
one of the things that I found in most of the communities that I've visited, and I've visited many, many communities over the states, is that, you have fire doors and you have fire ratings and things that you have to have. But an Alzheimer's patient who's walking, they're walking a lot. They're moving around a lot. There's a phase that they go through where they're touching everything, looking at everything, walking up and down the corridors constantly. But if they're locked in their room, some of them can't even figure out how to open their door because the doors are too heavy. So, there's just these simple little magnets that you can put that can keep the door open so that you don't have to feel locked in your room, but it still has the fire rated door. So there's all these different things that you can do, and you can buy that little magnet for like, I think it's $30 online.
Yeah.
I recommend it to everyone, by the way. And, it's just super helpful for making the person feel like they're not locked in to their room without anybody peeking in on them and being able to see that they're okay. One thing I've learned, staff is super busy because every level of care is needed once you're in memory care. You've got the people walking around, you've got the people chatting with you, and then you have the people that are basically some unable to talk, some unable to feed themselves, some unable to bathe and get themselves dressed, or need help figuring out how to get dressed in the morning, or getting undressed for night. There's so many different levels of care, and the staff is stretched, and they're stretched thin every single day. And so anything that you can do as a family member to help out is greatly appreciated. So, from a design standpoint, I think I love that magnet. I also like keeping things very simple. When you get to memory care, it's about keeping things simplified. Not too many items in the room, not too many accessories, not too many breakable things, because they will break, they will touch them, they will fall on the floor and break. So really keeping things simplified from a design standpoint is really best.
Looking towards the future too, well, I guess now into the future, we could say, what are some of the most exciting innovations or trends that you're seeing that are influencing senior living interiors now and into the future?
A lot of digitized things, moving into the technology of things. The one thing that you find with seniors as they decline, the ability to use their phone and how that translates into feeling connected to their family. There's just so many new trends coming out, and computers and Zoom. It's really great to be able to FaceTime or Zoom and see your loved one. And we want to make Zoom rooms, and we want to make, you can have different people in the community show you, set it up for you, get it ready for you, and to give you that connection so that if somebody can't visit you and they're out of state, this gives you that. You feel like you're being there in the same room with them. It just feels really special. So those technology things are super, super vital to keeping a senior living person happy and feeling connected.
You're saying a physical Zoom room, a room they would go
Exactly.
into? Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're setting up
that.
a lot of those, in not just regular market rate communities, but also in the senior living. They love them. They're super popular. People can help you do it. It's really easy to do. You can have the person at the community set up the Zoom with your family members. You can set them up pretty regularly, and then a person comes and gets you, brings you into the Zoom room, or you can just do a simple FaceTime. But most of the time they need help setting all of that up or getting it going. But it really helps them feel connected and they don't feel abandoned. So I think those are really important technology things that are really kind of moving forward for seniors.
My last question for you, there were two innovations you had already mentioned, the creating mini marts in the community, as well as better lighting automation. Are there other things that you think are missing in modern senior communities?
More lighting.
Yeah.
Developers have to spend more money on the lighting. I know they want to reduce it because of cost, but that is one thing you really, really need to do is add additional lighting. Seniors have a hard time seeing. Their eyesight's declining, and it's a fact through any ophthalmologist or optometrist that the better light that you have, the more you feel like you can accomplish things. And so it's really important to get good lighting in the units, not just the community. That would be my number one.
Yeah. Marcy, thank you so much for such a great conversation. Where can our audience go to learn more about MSA Interiors or connect with you?
We're certainly online at msainteriors.com, and we're happy to answer any questions anyone has. Feel free to reach out. Our contact is right on our website, and we're happy to share any of that information.
What about Designer Bank? Is that going to have a separate URL, or is that on the same?
It's going to be designerbank.com. It has not launched yet, so we're looking at anywhere from 3 to 6 months until we launch that, and we'll have it up on our website when we do launch.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll add it to the show notes as soon as it goes live too. I want people to be able to find that. So, awesome. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to extend a huge thank you to you, Marcy Sagel, for joining us and sharing your rich insights on what it truly means to design for dignity, functionality, and connection. From rethinking materials to creating spaces that feel like home, your work is changing the conversation around what senior living can and should feel like. So if you want to learn more about MSA Interiors or connect with Marcy directly, we've included her LinkedIn and company website in the show notes. As always, we hope you found this episode insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platforms and stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to explore the evolving world of senior care, covering everything from innovative care models and leadership strategies to family support, technology, and the future of aging. And also remember that From Leads to Leases isn't just an audio experience, we're also a video podcast. So if you want to see the video versions of our episodes, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube or Spotify channels. I'm Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth. Thank you for joining us on From Leads to Leases. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode with anyone who might find it useful. I'm truly grateful for your time and attention. So until next time, lead with strategy and with heart. Chat with you again soon. Thanks so much, Marcy.
Thanks, Jerry. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to From Leads to Leases. Are you ready to fill your rooms faster and increase occupancy? Visit ccrgrowth.com to learn about our Senior Growth Innovation Suite, a proven system to generate highly qualified, tour-ready leads, accelerate sales, and reduce acquisition costs. Let's connect and turn your challenges into opportunities. See you next time.